Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Okay. It is Thursday. I'm out of sorts because I did that Penticton trip on the weekend and it's a blur. But it is Thursday. I got that right. All of today's guests, including Farhan Lalji standing by, are brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. This Sunday is Referee Appreciation Night as the Giants, with special referee-themed jerseys, take on the Spokane Chiefs. Early puck drop is at 4 p.m. at the LEC. Grab a 6 or 12-game flex pack starting as low as $129. Get all the details at vancouvergiants.com/tickets as we bring in from TSN Farhan Lalji. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm good, boys. Enjoying a rainy morning. Hopefully it clears up a little bit later, and looking ahead to that game tomorrow night at BC Place.
Yeah, the atmospheric river has hit. Also known as a lot of rain.
Tons of rain.
Yeah, back in my day.
Just a Thursday on the West Coast.
There you go. Yeah, in October. Lions hosting Calgary. Let's start with the CFL, Farhan. Lions host Calgary on Friday, their regular season finale. They've got a bye week going into the playoffs. So Vernon Adams re-injures his knee in Hamilton. He's their starting quarterback, of course. He says he wants to play Friday. He says he will play on Friday. Is that a good idea?
I don't think it's a bad idea. They've got a bye week coming up. The doctors say the knee is structurally stable. He's going to put the brace back on, but that's just for his own peace of mind. And ultimately, he's fine. And if talking to the coaches and being at practice this week, especially later in the week, he's moving around just fine. So he wants to play. They want to stay sharp. They know they've got a week off going forward. I do think that the 5,000 matters to him if he's able to get to that. Hopefully he doesn't press for that early, because if he does, generally when you press any quarterback, bad things are going to happen. So, but all that said, I really do believe that if they thought there was any risk, they wouldn't be playing him right now. They've got a really good medical staff here with the Lions. They're getting good advice. So I'm going to trust them that they're not putting the player at risk.
And keeping in mind that he had the knee issues earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So what other than a win should the Lions be looking for on Friday? And do you like the situation, having that bye going into the playoffs for him?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like it less if they were hosting the West Final, right? It fits perfectly. Yeah. Now you've got one bye to get ready for a playoff game, and I think it's a good thing. You don't want to be off 2 weeks before a Western Final. So, I think the Lions need to but I think there's two areas of improvement they really need, at least. Number one, they got to figure out the run game, right? So Jaquan Hardy is getting an opportunity to start for a second straight game, because I think they want to provide a bit more of a physical element for a potential Western Final in Winnipeg in the bad weather, right? So he's 225 pounds. If he can show that he can run north-south and pick up difficult yardage, then I think he's got an opportunity there. And I want to see that from them, that they have the ability to run the football, both from a physical running back perspective and from an offensive line perspective that's got to improve in that area. And then the other thing is, I think there are some improvements to be made by this team defensively, right? Watching what happened in that Winnipeg game wasn't good, because it was the same play over and over. And if you look at Hamilton, they were also able to move the ball consistently in that game. So I do think there's some areas, and we've seen it the second half of the season. We gave Ryan Phillips' crew a lot of bouquets early on, and they deserved them. But I think in the second half of the season, this group hasn't been as good. So they need to continue to evolve and show what their strengths are going to be in the playoffs. And I think that's going to start this week against Calgary.
Farhan, let's go to the NFL, where the Jaguars have signed former Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke to the active roster. There's the Trevor Lawrence injury. Talk about that, what it means for him in this season where he's been on the practice roster.
Well, as far as tonight is concerned, I do expect him to be the number 3. It sounds like Trevor Lawrence is going to do everything possible to play tonight. It's probably going to be a game-time decision. But right now, I think Doug Peterson is expecting that Lawrence is going to start that game with a brace on his left knee, which means that as the number 3, the only way Nathan can play is if there's an injury to both guys ahead of him. Whereas if he was number 2, he could potentially play if just performance was bad, right? But big picture, I think it's a good thing, because the fact that they signed him and they didn't simply elevate him off the practice roster, which you're able to do 3 times per year per player, Had they done that, he automatically would have reverted back on Friday to the PR, whereas now he's signed. It's a little different. So I think there's an expectation that he's going to be on the active roster for a few weeks, right? It's going to be a while before Trevor is 100%. So they want that insurance. And there also isn't necessarily another pressing roster need based on injuries where you want to protect somebody else on that 53 that doesn't dress on the 48. So, and then if he gets to the third game, that accrues a year of service in the NFL, which means next year when he re-signs a deal or however that works out, it means his minimum, if he's an active roster player, is going to be $900,000, which is a pretty good deal, right? So I think it's a good thing for him right now, and I just think it gets him one step closer. He was able to be a little more engaged in the offensive game plan this week versus the other offense's game plan, so that he can give a good look on scout team to the Jags, right? So I think it's just kind of that next step and one he's anxious to take.
You talked about $900,000 next year, but I don't think it's about money. If he goes the whole year without playing it down, that hurts. That hurts him.
Doesn't change how he feels. You know, I talked to Nathan yesterday, and he's going to continue this. He said to me, he's like, if I would have stayed with the Lions and not taken this shot, I always would have wondered. And that's okay, right? Like that's good that he feels that way. This league's not going anywhere. And his value is not going anywhere, right? Like if you don't think that if he sits 2 years on an NFL bench, that a CFL team isn't going to pay him $600,000 to come back, you're kidding yourself. So yeah, it's unfortunate that you don't get to play. And you're right, Rick, it's not about the money. It's about him trying to live out his dream. And that's the NFL. So let him take a shot. But believe me when I tell you, he's paying attention to what's happening back here. He's watching the Lions closely. And it's not going to go on forever. But I do think this goes on at least another year. Whether or not it goes on in Jacksonville remains to be seen. There might be a better NFL situation out there for him, but he's not going to give in to what, you know, Canadians believe, that he should come back and give us all the pleasure of watching him play. He's got a dream. He's going to see it through.
Talking with Farhan Lalji. Canucks, as we switch gears, get overpowered by the Flyers after going 2-0 against Edmonton. You got this team figured out yet, Farhan?
I've got it figured out to the point where they desperately need a right shot defenseman. And I'm not sure Friedman's going to be that guy, right? I mean, he's just going to be a bottom of the roster player. The truth is they need a top four right shot defenseman, somebody that can play with Quinn Hughes. And if a Connor Garland trade helps facilitate them going out to get a more legitimate defensive option, then I think that's a good thing. But that wasn't the only reason they got completely outworked and outclassed against a Flyers team that's not going to make the playoffs, right? Like, this is not an elite team like they're going to face tonight in Tampa. That was a really, really ordinary team that simply beat them to a pulp, especially in the third period in a game that was still available to them. So it was disappointing to watch. But look, at the end of the day, you're not going to throw out what they did in the first two games because of that performance. I think they're still ahead of where they were a year ago, but it shows that it's consistency, right? And so they need to be able to do what they did in the season opener night after night, or at least every second night, right? So we saw the downside. We know it's going to take a while before they can achieve a consistent level of play. But, you know, the right side hole is not going anywhere.
Very quickly, Farhan, Huskies on the weekend defeat.
Thank you for
Oregon.
Bringing that up.
So they move up to number 5. How far away do you think they are from being the best team in American college football? I guess 4 spots.
There are people right now who believe that was the most quality win any team has had this season. Oklahoma beating Texas was also a quality win. Maybe Ohio State, Notre Dame less so, but that was a big-time win, an absolutely big-time win for a program that now belongs at that level and in that conversation. You know, if you look at some of the metrics that the college football playoff uses to determine their top 4, you know, Washington is there, right? Yep. So I think this is a legitimately good team. And what, you know, it kills me. I was back hosting the CFL panel, which I loved, but just to miss that game, and, you know, I go down a lot to Husky Stadium and just the atmosphere, right? They've recorded the loudest crowd ever in the history of a college football game with a decibel count that was like over 133 previously, and it was close to that in this game. So the atmosphere was awesome, and it's cool. The Pac-12 is so hard. As much as I love them, I still don't know that they can run the table because it's just too good and too deep of a conference this year. But what a win. What a win. And I've had a chance to go to some of the biggest wins in the history of that stadium, like, you know, the 92 Nebraska game and the Todd Marinovich, all I saw was purple, and, you know, the wins against Miami and Michigan. Like, I've been to some of those, and there's nothing like that. And the people that were there say this Oregon game was right up there with every one of those. And I'm sorry I missed it, and looking forward to getting to the next one.
You love it when a game like that lives up to the hype. Maybe even exceeds it. Exceeds the hype. Farhan, next week we'll talk.
Kind of like your show. Your show lives up to and exceeds the hype.
Only on Thursdays, Farhan. Only on Thursdays.
Only on the left side of your show. We got
to work on that right side.
Talk. We got to go have some crown.
Our strength is on the right side, unlike the Canucks.
Yeah. Depends
there you go, buddy.
If you're here or if you're watching. All right, Farhan, thanks for this. Appreciate it.
See you guys.